everyone. So today I'm going to do a quick like a watercolor paper review. And I am doing this slightly different because normally what I do is I would just, tell you the paper name, what this is, and then tell you what the test is, how the results in the tests are. But what I'll do today is I will just go through the test results first, then I'll let you know what paper this is. I use ink and wash techniques. I use a lot of watercolor. But in this test, I also do look at other things like gouache, watercolor pencils, and also inks, like writing fountain pen inks. So first of all, I just like to go through the ink part because I use a lot of ink and watercolor washes for my urban sketching. How I do this is I will use pens of two different nib sizes, a thin and a thick nib, and I'll write them in a fast and slow speed. So what we want to see from here is whether there's firstly any skips, and secondly if there's any bleeding, feathering, especially at the slow pace and when you have a thick nib, and also, like, I think sometimes especially when the ink goes above watercolor, you get a lot of that bleeding or that feathering more obviously. So for this paper, I must say that the fast I do get some skips when I use my nib because it's very, very smooth. So it's possible that it's just too fast, or like the surface is just too tense for that ink to flow out. So it's a bit, it comes a bit out, you do get little spots where the ink just doesn't come out. So as you can see here, thin nib fast, I do get some skips. And also for the thick nib, I do get a bit of feathering. But it's not very, very bad. It's not very obvious. If you go really close and you look at it, you might see it, but then I think it's actually okay. And interestingly, for the ink on top of watercolor part of the writing, I don't get that as bad as it without the watercolor. So I think in terms of like how it performs, pen on this paper, it's actually quite good. It's quite, I think it passed. And then let's look at the watercolor portion of it. So there are a few tests here. So we do have the layering test, lifting, edges. I also look at the granulation test and also the swatches. So first of all, I think for me, the techniques that are very important for watercolors are layering. And I can see here, like, I think I use up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers. And I can still see at here, like, we still see some of those colors. So some of the water, if the paper is not like suitable for doing layering, you can actually see that the color on the first layer or second layer just coming out as you kind of brush colors on top of it. So this one, you can still see the distinct layer, which is really good. But of course, how we do this test is just make sure that every layer, that watercolor is dried before you apply the next one. And also, second thing that I think is very important, for me at least, is because I make a lot of mistakes, I also like to soften edges. I like to lift colors. I always do a lifting test with my watercolor paper. And I have two types of paint here. One is easy to lift color. So this is cerulean blue, very easy to lift. I just need like about 8 strokes and the color just come off. And I think the surface is still quite integral, which is good. And then I use a difficult color to lift, and this is the dioxazine purple. I think I went up to like 16 strokes, and the paper is still integral. I don't see like little balls of paper coming off. So which is good, even though I can't lift the whole thing, which is a good thing because the dioxazine purple is you're not supposed to lift all the colors up because it's very staining. But you can do so like to a certain degree without disturbing the surface. So this is actually quite good as a paper for lifting. And for the edges, I think for me is also one of the deciding points if I would use this paper. And for this paper, there is as you see, there are 2 squares. This is the lift the edges. I try to soften the edge after the square of paint has dried up. And for this, I was able, I can get considerable amount of softening. There is still some hard lines, but I think this is not too bad. And in this square, I actually was able to soften the edge like totally because the paint is not dried yet. So this is one good point. So I really quite like its performance in lifting and edges. And in the granulation test, I think it performs really well as well because what I do here is I put a lot of water, tons and tons of water, and just drop separating paints, granulating paints, and you can see that nice separation. Water just, like a lot of water, pigment separates out and it just kind of sinks down, and you do see all these backflows, you get like these blooms. I love textures like this, so for me, I really like it. This paper allows me to get all these texture. Not all papers can do this. And then if we compare the type of watercolor, this is a artist grade watercolor, Roman Smalls watercolor set. This is typo. Typo is a kind of a craft paint. So as you can see, it does allow you to see very clearly the colors, and they are very vibrant. The colors are beautiful, and they kind of don't look too dull in this paper. So I am quite pleased with this, with how it performs for the watercolor. This is a watercolor paper anyway. And of course, I do add in a few more additional tests, just in case you also do other like multimedia. So for example, if you do use ink, like fountain pen inks, I have 3 types of ink here. This is kind of a multi-color ink. This is a sheening ink. This is a sheening plus a bit of like the shimmering ink. And I was able to see all the differences here. Not very obvious, like how sheening ink is when you kind of look at it at different angle, you get different color. This is not as good as fountain pen papers where you actually see that, but you do see a bit of that difference, like the ponding, the color looking a bit different. And then when you can definitely use this for gouache. Like I was even able to do like quite a smooth surface, and I don't get very bad streaks. So this is semi gouache. And for watercolor pencil, I'm using Darwin Intense. I was able to get some of these texture with the watercolor, pencil, how color pencil is. You can't really, you can't really get a very smooth surface unless you do some kind of blending. So this is kind of the surface, like the texture you see without doing blending. And of course, when you add water to it, this is what I get. So I think this paper, you can use it for gouache, you can use it for watercolor ink, you can use it for color pencil. So by far, this is kind of one of my favorite watercolor paper. Top 3 watercolor paper that I love, that I would recommend. So are you ready to find out what this paper is? So this paper is in fact part of this sketchbook that I made, and I got it done at SPD. This is in fact paper, the Bao Hong 100% cotton artist grade watercolor paper, and this is the hot press. I actually got this one from Taobao this is the A5 size. They are available in many sizes.
AliExpress should also stock it. Look for the artist grade or 艺术家级水彩纸. One of the main reasons why it is the best watercolor paper for me is the cost. It is unbeatable. Like it costs only $6 for a pack of 20 A5 size paper.
So before I end this video, I'm just going to show you the type of things that I've done on this painting that I've done on this watercolor paper. As you can see, you can get all these texture. I don't think I'm ready for a like sketchbook tour yet, because I still have quite a few pages to finish. But these are the things I could get. Like these are the things that I was able to paint with this watercolor papers, and I think I really like it. So yeah, if you have the chance, if you are looking for a paper to try and you don't mind like ordering something from AliExpress, yeah, just go and get this one from Bao Hong. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I know it's a little bit weird because I don't tell you what paper this is until the end. But yeah, I hope you had fun guessing what paper this is. This paper, how many of you actually guess that this is the Bao Hong hot press artist grade watercolor paper? Let me know in the comment section, okay? Do let me know if there are any other watercolor papers that you will recommend, like it's your top 3 watercolor papers. Share it, and then maybe if I get my hands on it, like I would like do the same test and see if it's as good as this paper. Okay, yeah, so I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to see similar content, and I'll see you again next week. Bye.